What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Duran Duran. We're going back to the Rio album, back to the deluxe edition. When I first reacted to Hold Back the Rain, for whatever reason, I decided to do the US album version, even though it was on this disc rather than my US vinyl copy of the album from the early 80s. And so yeah, I did that one first, and then when I recently reacted to the Carnival remix, I was curious, like, oh, does this sound more like the US one or the one from the original? And I realized I never actually did a reaction to the UK original. So I've heard this tune in a couple different versions, but I actually don't think until now I've heard the original articulation of the track as it was on the UK album. So that's what we're going to listen to. Lyrically, a number of you informed me after the first reaction that this is about Simon being worried about John Taylor and where he was going in his life, and dealing with a couple different layers of addiction and so on. So yeah, I think this was a plea, but also an impassioned message to a friend and to a fellow creative artist to do his best to hold back the rain. So yeah, I really appreciate the emotion of the tune and sort of the lyrical origin of the tune. I think it's once again a tune, a set of lyrics that can be applied more broadly. I think their lyrics would speak to like the dangers of human experience and the sort of the potential like dark underbelly of fame and sort of being extremely popular, in that sense that suddenly there will be people around you who for one reason or another may not have your best interest in mind, whether they're trying to leech off you or trying to sort of push you into like more extreme like experiences and so on. So yeah, I think it's a tune which can speak to the dangers which a number of people can face, not just members of like very popular bands that go on tour around the world and so on, although perhaps the dangers and the sort of message of the tune are particularly acute in that regard. So again, I think it's another song that can operate on multiple levels lyrically and can be relevant to sort of normal or everyday people's lives, even those people who are not sort of globe traveling rock stars. So yeah, I think it's a really well written tune. What I remember as I listened to the US one before I did this reaction is that the US version of the tune, at least, it sounds like a number of other tunes on the album. It's got that sort of guitar groove, it's got that kind of dancey like synth rock, synth pop sort of nexus, the Venn diagram of those two flavors sort of in perfect tandem. So I think it feels on the US version very much like a lot of the other songs on the album. But it's interesting because my experience with this album originally was with the US version. So I was hearing the handful of tunes. What is it, 5? Yeah, there's 5 tunes that they remixed for the US market. And so I feel like my understanding of what this album sounds like is colored by the fact that I will be more familiar with the US versions. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear this and to hear how much it varies. I do remember when I did the reaction to the US version, the first reaction I did to the song, there were a couple people who were like, whoa, that's not the version of the song I remember. And again, I think that's because a lot of people will have heard the original UK version. So let's get to it. This is from the UK album Hold Back the Rain by Duran Duran on the Rio album 1982. Okay, it does have a slightly different feel, yeah. It feels more like kind of precise and less like loud overall. Those little bass flares. imagery of that. Are those little synth? Are those in the US version? Not sure. But I wonder, like, those the true drums, or is that like a drum machine? Yeah, my impression so far is it sounds very similar, just like a little less loud and a little more like, again, kind of like delicately arranged. But again, very similar, like not notably different. And I do love the double layer of Simon's voice. Look at this. But no, I enjoy it. I like, it's interesting. It sounded less different than I expected. For some reason I expected it to have a like notably different feel. But yeah, I think most of the major strokes there are the same sort of elements of the other. I think it was just like, it didn't feel quite as like booming, like powerful right out of the gate. It felt like it was more like building the tune up, again, sort of like more precisely. And again, there were maybe one or two synth layers in the middle there where like I didn't remember them coming in that way or at that moment in the US version, but maybe I'm just misremembering that. So yeah, let me know what you think. I do remember at least a couple people commented when I did the US version that they liked that, but it was different than the one they remembered, and I think there was an implication, at least in one of the comments, that they liked the original version better. Though I have talked about that, not just, I don't know if in relation to a Duran Duran reaction, but I know when I've reacted to classical music I've talked about it. Sometimes that there are like different versions of a tune, and you hear a particular version first, even if it's not the original, even if it was a live version or like, a re-recording like later. I feel like sometimes that sort of imprints on your brain that that's like the proper way that the tune sounds. So then if you hear a different version, even if it's an earlier, like original mix of a tune, it might sound like, oh, that's cool, and obviously I recognize the layers, but I feel like, the other one is like, that's the way it should be or whatever. But I think sometimes it's just because you heard it first, and so that's sort of like, okay, that's what that tune sounds like. And then if you hear a later version, even if maybe you actually would very much like it if you heard it first, it ends up perhaps sounding like, if not inferior, like, oh, it's like different, like, I didn't expect it to go that way or whatever. Well, it's, because you have the template of the other version. So, I wonder if maybe part of my like surprise that it wasn't more different is just because I was expecting it to be so based on some of the comments. But either way, I did very much enjoy it. As I'd said, I think it's a very beautifully written song with a very wonderful message in the context of the band, and also a very sort of inspirational message that could be applied more broadly. Let me know what you think. Other than that, I will see you next time. Peace.